Well, I want to suggest something. If you plan to jump in the, say, cold water, this is cold water, I'd put a bathing suit on. Anyway, they keep putting me out here like this and having the water come and run all over me. And I wonder what the purpose is in that life. Perhaps we will find out today. I'm Dorothy Wilhelm. I'm always looking for good answers to unusual questions, and that is why my special guest today is life coach, passion instigator, and my best friend, Gina NTD, Gina Carey. Gina NTD means not the daughter. I have a Gina and she belongs to me. Well, anyhow, did I sufficiently explain what we're going to do? What we're going to do is you have a number of topics that you thought of that we could share. And I thought they were so interesting that instead of analyzing one to death, I thought we would go and see what we can get out of each one. Maybe get some strategies, maybe get a few laughs, maybe, weep on one another's shoulder. Is the dog pushing something around, or is it?
The dogs might make an appearance. They're like kids when mom gets on the phone.
Oh, absolutely. There are two of them. I forget.
Yes.
I could hear something, so I wasn't sure. Okay, I will be glad to see them if they want to make an appearance. So this is very exciting, and it's not as if you don't get to do this kind of thing all the time. But to start with, the topic that you had mentioned that was really very interesting is about our legacies. Now, what did you mean? My first thought was a legacy. I'm a scant mere 92. You know this. Scant mere legacy 92. I don't know what I would possibly choose for a legacy. What were you thinking of, or what did you find out?
Well, I think that it's more top of mind as we get into this phase of our children going off to live their lives and being observers and watching how they are managing it. And I think we begin to adjust our wills, look at our estate. What do we want to do with our homes? These kind of things. And I was thinking about legacy with regard to what am I leaving my children? And I guess I always thought about legacy as a big, leaving them a bunch of money or leaving them a house or photos. I'm nobody that's famous. It's not like I have a big ship with my name on it, or a monument constructed for me. But I began to wonder what my children are carrying with them. And I often talk to my kids about when I die. I talk to them a lot about that because I had a parent who died quite young and one who died just a few years ago. And I want my kids to know who their mom was and to know what I lived for, worked for, believed in. And so this just has me all up in my feels and also reminds me that legacy is not about being remembered. It's about being repeated. What will they?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you right there in the hand gesture. But what do you mean by being repeated?
About what is it that my children are carrying forward that they appreciated, that they loved about me, that they loved what I stood for. For example, one of the things that I always taught my children was to write a thank you, a handwritten thank you note. And my children quotation, air quotes, are now 29, 26, and 18. And 2 of them will bump up another year this summer. And I made my 18-year-old, made him, and yes, I still have to make them. And that looks like I addressed the envelope and he wrote a thank you letter to his great aunt for a graduation check that he received. And that was a few weeks ago. And just this week, I got an email from her. And she said how much it meant to her to get that handwritten note from my son, and that he really ought to take up writing. He ought to be writing for a career. And she said, you know, he was so thoughtful and wise in the words he chose that it inspired me to read it twice. And that's saying a lot from this woman. She is well-educated, well-traveled. She's a Spitfire at 78. And just the fact that my son's writing, something he learned from me from the time he could hold a pencil, has stuck with him. He knows how to write a letter. It's not just thank you for the money, love. He knows what a thank you letter entails, and the kind of things that you put in, the thoughtful sentiments that you write to someone who loves you and who you love. And I'd like to think that's something that I am leaving my children with. They know how to do that.
I think that's lovely. And yes, it certainly is. Definitely it goes. So are we putting these things, these items, the legacy? Oh, yes, on the whiteboard.
Sure. I will put writing letters.
I'm always fond of telling people that the whiteboard gets more fan mail than anything else. I don't know if that's good, but it's true.
It's wonderful.
People actually write to the whiteboard.
Oh, how much they love.
Yeah.
Good.
So what else, that's really a good one. I think most of what we can leave, I'm just thinking this through, is like that, something that you can do to pass on. And it's emblematic of the legacy thing. For me, what comes to my mind right away is that I only have one granddaughter. We run to boys. She years ago wrote, that must have been about the time that her grandpa died, must have been. Anyway, she made me a cookbook with Grammy's recipes, and it's just so wonderful. And I still use it. I mean, it's still, her mom helped her, of course, because finding the recipes and all that. But it was such a wonderful thing. And I think especially, because I was thinking about it when we first started talking about it, is that it's very hard to guess what, if anything, your kids will care about later on. Mostly they're mostly just not interested. If you've been able to do a thing or two that they really care about, that's good.
Yes.
But I'm thinking, the cookbook, it was just a marvelous cookbook. It had all of Grammy's favorite recipes, and she put it in a like Better Homes and Gardens type notebook, so you could open it easily and get into it. And so I would say I treasure that. And in a way, we look at it backwards. That's part of her legacy, isn't it? It's part of Grammy's legacy, but it's part of her legacy too. So that's kind of an interesting thing.
Yes.
So let's make sense of all of it for us.
Well, and I think too that those things come with stories, you know, that there's and those stories bring up an emotion and a feeling. I have something from my grandmother's house in my home, and one of the only reasons that I wanted this, they call it a dry sink. And, you know, it's just a cabinet. It's a cabinet with a few drawers. And the reason I wanted it is because it always smelled like my grandfather, because he kept his pipe in the top drawer and his tobacco. And I can still see it in my mind's eye, you know, but when you open up that dry sink, even though they've been gone for, 35 years, I can still smell that tobacco.
I know.
And it
Just
reminds me of my grandfather.
my grandfather had one too. Everybody did in those days, and it does. Whether I don't have it anymore, so I don't know, but it probably does still. So see now, so far we've got. So we've got the thank you note that's written. That's personal expression, and the cookbook almost is the same kind of thing, and the
Stories.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the word that would go in there. So they're all. I'm visualizing it all as reaching out in some way, and if so, what are we reaching to, and what are we bringing back? Is what when we started to talk about it, I visualized that it would be about what we said to start with. What are we leaving behind? But that's not, and really the kids don't care. I just want to promise you that they do not care. They may care someday. I would not throw anything away just because they didn't care about it. But, because they're busy with their own lives right now. You give them one of the dogs, I think.
I agree. But another example is I taught my children that instead of giving money to people who are unhoused, that you feed them. You feed them and you keep them warm. And so I always have socks in my car, especially in the Michigan winters. I have big wool socks, and we will hand those out to people. But we went to visit my daughter in Boston. She was going to Berklee College of Music at the time. And we were walking around campus with her. And one of the women that it was on the street came running up and put her arm around Daria and looked at my husband and me and went on to tell us how much she loved her and how Daria had taken care of her and given her food and a blanket. And it was moments like that where you recognize that the way we have modeled our values has soaked into the children, because not do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
My children do as I do. And that's to see it happening in real time, is a blessing.
It really is. And it's hard to put into words. And of course, it's our business to put things into words, how much it matters. At one level, you would say at really very little effort. And that's not true. I know it takes a lot of effort from a lot of angles, but pretend for a minute. Or, how much effort does it take to ignore those people?
Yes. Yes. And I would be remiss if I didn't. I've told you stories about my youngest and my oldest. And I will say something about my middle. And she's feisty, my middle one. And she has, from the time she was very little, had justice as one of her core values. She fights for the underdog. She fights for equity and fairness and loves animals. We thought she was going to be the veterinarian. And when she was in high school, she was very aware of, this is when the human trafficking was very coming up, and everyone was aware of it. So she and her friends were at a McDonald's one evening in high school. She was probably a junior. And she recognized this booth of
Mm.
people, and she was very tuned in and knew what to look for because she had read about it. She had studied it. She knew how to protect herself because she's very tiny, and she also knew what to look for. And she and her friends left that McDonald's and called the police,
Mm.
and they arrested the most highly wanted
Oh.
trafficker in mid-Michigan. She was responsible for making sure that he came to justice. And it was very scary as a parent
Yes, I
to
was.
hear. And she made sure not to tell us until she was. But these are the things, like the courage, the consistency and determination, the compassion and awareness, all of that.
That really is very, very inspiring, and as you say, it's for a parent very worrisome.
Yes,
Kind of,
yes.
but that's a wonderful thing. How would we go about discovering the legacy that we are wanting to leave and that we are leaving? And we're for the minute taking out. Obviously, this is one thing I think. If you look at your family, you'll see that after all, they are paying attention to you. They're just pretending not to.
Exactly.
But what can we do? How much can, I guess my question is, how much can we influence what we leave behind and how people feel about what we leave?
I think really slowing down long enough to have conversations. And as the kids are moving on, moving out, to take that time, no matter how many children. Now I can say this because I have 3. I don't know if I had more than that, how difficult it would be, but to take the time with each one and really find out, as they're moving or as you're getting rid of things, I'm not going to stay in a big house forever. I'm going to downsize. And so spending that time with each one of the kids to determine what it is they really want out of the house, or, what, and then spending that time in conversation about what they're carrying with them into this next phase of their lives. What are you most proud of? All along, I've been having conversations with my kids. I would ask them what they loved about me. I would ask them how I could be a better mom. I asked them all the time what they did at school that was kind, loving, or gentle. I wouldn't ask them how math went. I always went directly to what kind of human were you today?
That is a wonderful way to do it, and I tried to do the same thing though it comes out different. In saying, not usually when they come home from school when they're little, you say, "What did you learn today?" or what, that kind of thing, and I would always say, "What wonderful thing happened today?"
Oh, right.
So that one works. And the other thing I wanted to add in, see, this is pretty good. Actually, I think we should write a book. It should be a little square book, and it should have one idea on a page. And we could have it out in time for Christmas.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
But anyway, what we do, because as you mentioned, we do have more. We have 6 kids. And room for a spare, that's all.
Yeah.
And so we always had, because we did have all these kids, we always had Daddy, say Patrick's Day. Patrick was the youngest, didn't matter how many. And on Patrick's Day, Mom and Daddy, both Mom and Daddy, had to do, we took Patrick somewhere, but it couldn't be shopping. It couldn't be doing errands. It could not be stopping and talking to friends. I mean, it could be, you certainly didn't have to throw things at them, but you did, but it was Patrick's Day. He got to choose what we would do. And we went along for the ride. But that was really, that I would really recommend. And so we did that with all of them. With 6, it's going to be 6 weeks or so, even if you do one a week. You're not going to be able to do everybody a month, but it'll be close. But the big thing that it is their day, and that you are, here's the wonderful thing for them, you are listening to them. And they are telling you, because truth to tell, I feel like I hope they know what I think. They know how, what we can do. And you got to listen, the wise words back from the people that you love too. Yes. But that one works. And I think, it really helped us to know each other when it happened then that we lost their dad. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, this is kind of funny too. So I'm Catholic. What did you think? Where do you think you get 6 kids from? What you had this. And so when my oldest son, whose name I will preserve for the moment, got married, and they went to the church for the wedding, and guess what? It wasn't a Catholic church, and I was so upset. I was, you can't believe how terribly I took this. It was just awful. Even though he obviously is very taken with the lovely lady and stood there all during the service, patting her on the bottom, which was nice. He just seemed to like her a lot. And so anyway, so the minute church is over, minute the service is over, I ran back to my church, and Father Boyle was our pastor then. Some say he haunts the church to this day because he loved that church. Anyway, and I told him my terrible story. And I said, how I wanted him to give me magic words to how I could, I guess I thought he'd drop everything, and so that my son, whom I'm carefully not going to mention his name, that everything would be the way I wanted it. In other words, I would come back, And he said to me, well, you don't get to say what's right for your boy. You have raised a good man, and now the journey is his. And that was the best advice I ever got.
Wow.
And because it's absolutely true, And they're still married after, I think, 51 years. So.
Excellent. All worked out in the end.
It really did. So anyway, this is just a couple or 3 ideas about legacy, playing with it a little, but so kind of recap.
Well,
3 things.
I think that the people that you love, we're not only talking about children, because there are people out there leaving legacies with their friends, with their colleagues, and their communities. It's people remember, this is the Maya Angelou. They remember how you made them feel. And no one at the end of their life is going to say, I wish I would have worked more. It's time. Right. It's time spent with people. And so if that truly is the way we leave our legacy, it's time to put our phones down more often. It's time to give, people your time, call your people that you love, write letters, and share stories. These are the things that people will remember. And, you have to trust that you did the best you can with those kids, and that they're going to carry forward some of you with them and teach their children or their friends. And it's this, it's this transfer. Here's the cool thing. When we take action, and I'm known as the Queen of Action.
I do know that.
When we take action in our lives and share our gifts with the world, we are practicing the transfer of our legacy. We're in action. If we hold everything close to our chest, if we hold on to all our money and all our things and think they'll get it all when I'm dead, this is the opposite of how we want to be in the world. And so being the best you can be, living in your values, and doing it when no one is watching. That's how
Yes,
we leave the best legacy.
that is just wonderful. And I think you can look for our book, I would say, about Christmas time, don't you think?
I think so. I
That'll
think
be
it'll be
good.
wonderful.
Regina Carey is a passion instigator. I can never say that without laughing. And the Queen of Action. And one more thing. What else?
Oh, well, you know what? I'm an author, not as big of an author as you are, but that too. But yeah, mostly
She's
a
a
mom.
too.
But
So,
yes, and if anybody wants to reach out, they can find me at queenofaction.com.
queenofaction.com. I bet I was going to ask you that, although maybe not. You never know. Okay, thank you so much for coming by today, and let's see what we can cook up. It's wonderful. I thought that
Let's
was
do
really
it.
good, actually. Okay, very much. Goodbye, dear Regina Carey. And we'll see you again next time. Remember that this is an SOB radio production. SOB stands for Spunky Old Broads. And all of the women who host for our show are over 50 because we're not fooling around. Bye now.